Russians refer to Tolstoy and Dostoevsky as great writers, great geniuses, but Chekhov as a friend.
He actually engages with all those big questions of life and death, but he does it with such lightness.
Chekhov always denied that he had any kind of agenda. He was interested in human beings and how they interacted.
He did represent people actually as they really are.
What Chekhov puts his finger on so brilliantly in all his last plays is the slow decline of this group of people who are being ousted from their houses and their homes and their comfortable positions. These are not members, as it were, of the aristocracy. They are people who belong to the lower ranks of the gentry. They are not extremely wealthy. They're certainly not powerful or influential in the world.
That's what his plays are mostly about people feeling that real life is just out of reach, and the realization of their own lives is just out of reach. It
was a way of life that was destined to die because it was built on sand. I mean, the people who enabled it to function were the serfs, and when the serfs were emancipated in 1861, obviously people lost their livelihoods and these beautiful country estates started to fall into decay and people became impoverished and abandoned them.
Well, I don't think it's a mistake that he called his plays comedies. The vision was essentially a wry and amused view of human weakness, I think. The surface of the plays is actually rather bright and animated and energized.
Audiences can't have known what to make of it, and in fact the reaction to some of the early plays is quite resentful, particularly The First Night of the Seagull, because it was as if a trick was being played on the audience. They didn't know what was to be taken seriously and what was funny, and that's he redefined all those terms.
Stanislavski and his partner Nemirovich Danchenko decided to found a new theatre, and Chekhov turned out to be the ideal author for them. What Stanislavski enjoyed in Chekhov's writing was the fact that, as he once put it, the main meaning of the text is not by any means carried just by the words. It's very often carried by what happens between the words.
It worked wonderfully for the first productions, but for Chekhov, eventually it got a bit much because the verisimilitude actually killed the great magic of the plays. Chekhov actually was moving increasingly towards the abstract.
It seems that he was going into something more expressionistic, and you can already see that in The Cherry Orchard. If you look closely at Lopakhin's Facts and Figures, it's a vast, vast area, impossibly big, bigger than any cherry orchard perhaps can be imagined to be. He had this vision of a sea of white, he says, and cherry trees in bloom, and the branch of a cherry tree coming through the window into the house, and girls in white dresses. It's almost an hallucination he has of this white landscape. Then Ranevsky sees for a moment her dead mother moving around in the orchard, just for a second. Trofimov sees the souls of Russia's suffering peasants in the trees. These are all things which is, suggest something which is, something more than real.
This beautiful orchard, our beautiful orchard. After how many stormy autumns every year, gripped by winter, my orchard is always young again, full of happiness and life.
Talk all you like about whatever you want, but know this. Come August 22nd, this whole place will be up for sale unless you can find the money to pay for your debts. So decide. You all decide. But I have my plan and I can't see another way out.
Where are the schools? The libraries? Where's all the money going? On roads? This wealth from industry and enterprise, where is it all going?
Each of the 4 acts has this incredibly different feel and location to it. We start in nighttime and it's cold. It's spring, but it's snowing outside. Through Act 1, the lighting shifts and we gradually come to dawn, which is wonderful for a designer to try and get some of that quality. I think that the house does feel like another character in the play. It's like an old, wonderful, historical sort of relic of something that was marvellous and in the past and is still wonderful and heartfelt, but is just on its last legs and probably is soon to go. I mean, I think we do feel like, as we hear the chopping at the end of the play, that that's the house coming down as well as the cherry orchard. And it is just a sort of melancholy remembrance of the past.
It's a wonderful period to design because it is the last few years before the First World War, so it really is a bygone era. We've got to track that descent into simplicity and necessity as the family realise that their time is up on the estate and they've got to move on. If we move from these beautiful, beautiful silks and things, we've got this eventual, rather sad progression to functional cottons when the fortunes start changing.
And all those sunsets took place over there, beyond the horizon.
Beyond the Horizon was O'Neill's first full-length produced play. It won him his first Pulitzer Prize, and it was such a compelling, visceral experience then in 1920.
It's a story of these decent people making these choices for selfless reasons that turn out to be just the wrong choices, just tragic choices.
It's the truth, Andy Mayo, and you ought to be bowed and shamed to think of it. Or enough, it's a shame of you to talk the truth! God's truth!
It's not truth, Pa! I don't love Ruth. I never loved her, and the thought never entered my mind.
Oh, now you're spouting lie on lie.
Oh, I suppose it would be difficult for you to explain anyone wanting to leave this blessed farm except for some outside reason like that. I've been sick of farm life for a long time, and if I never said anything about it, it was to save your feelings.
Maybe stop. You're only making things worse.
I don't care. I've done my share of work around here, and I've earned my right to quit when I want to. And I am sick of the business. I hate the farm and every inch of ground in it. I'm sick of digging in the dirt and sweating in the sun like a slave without a word of thanks for it.
Eugene O'Neill, it's the major leagues of language. It's just as poetic as Shakespeare, but instead of one lover saying to another, a rose by any other name, it's a farmer saying to his son, I've watched you grow up. I know your ways, and they're my ways.
You dare to speak like that to me?
And it's just as beautiful, and it's just as illuminating, but it's poetry with dust and dirt in it.
Had loved you as long as I could remember. You mustn't mind my telling you this. I realize how impossible it all is, and I understand, for the revelation of my own love seemed to open my eyes to the love of others. I saw Andy's love for you, and I knew that you must love him.
I don't love Andy. I don't. Whatever put such a fool notion into your head. Oh, Rob, don't go away, please. You mustn't go now. You can't. I won't let you. It would break my heart.
You come to see Eugene O'Neill the same reason you come to see any great art. It's something that moves you because you can see yourself in it. You can see your own needs and dreams and relationships with people in it.
There's so many elements to this play that it's just about the human condition and relationships, and I think that that's timeless.
Θα ήθελα να σας πω κάτι πολύ ευχάριστο που σας ενδιαφέρει. Τώρα φεύγω, δεν έχω καιρό να μιλήσουμε, μόνο 2-3 λόγια στα πεταχτά. Ξέρετε βέβαια πως ο βυσσινό κηπός σας πουλιέται για τα χρέη. Ο πληστηριασμός έχει οριστεί για τις 22 Αυγούστου. Αλλά μην ανησυχείτε, αγαπητοί μου, μπορείτε να κοιμάστε ήσυχοι. Υπάρχει λύση. Ιδού το σχέδιό μου. Παρακαλώ, προσέξτε. Το κτήμα σας απέχει μόνο 20 βέρστια από την πόλη. Δίπλα περνάει ο σιδηρόδρομος.
But now that I've sort of looked at James Tyrone, and it is extraordinary to sort of pick the script up and learn it and follow his strange rhythms, which are strange to me, and yet they become terribly one's own after a while. They uncannily become your own. You said you realized what I'd been up against as a boy. The hell you do! How could you? You've had everything. Nurses, schools, college, although you never stayed there. You've had food, clothing. Oh, I know, you had a fling at hard work with your back and hands and a bit of being homeless and penniless in a foreign land, and I respect you for it. But it was a game of romance and adventure to you. It was play. So don't start your damned atheist morbidness again. I don't care to hear it. What do you know of the value of a dollar? My father, when I was 10 years old, deserted my mother and went back to Ireland to die, which he did soon enough and deserved to. And I hope he is roasting in hell. Yes. Maybe life overdid the lesson for me and made a dollar worth too much. And then the time came when it ruined my career as a fine actor. No, I've never admitted this to anyone before, lad. But tonight I'm so heartsick I feel at the end of everything. So what's the use of fake pride and pretense? That goddamn play that I bought for a song and made such a great success in, a great money success, it ruined me with its promise of an easy fortune. I didn't want to do anything else. And when I finally woke up to the fact I'd become a slave to the damn thing, I did try other plays, but it was too late. They identified me with that one part. They didn't want to see me in anything else, and they were right, too. I lost that great talent I had through years of easy repetition, never learning a new part, never really working hard at $35,000 to $40,000 net profit a season. It was like snapping your fingers. It was too great a temptation. But before I bought the damn play, I was considered one of the 3 or 4 young actors with the greatest artistic promise in America. I'd worked like hell. I'd left a good job as a machinist to take super parts because I loved the theater. I was wild with ambition. I read all the plays that were ever written. I studied Shakespeare like you study the Bible. I educated myself. I got rid of an Irish brogue you could cut with a knife. I loved Shakespeare. I would have acted in any of his plays for nothing, for the joy of being alive in his great poetry. And I acted well in him. I was inspired by him. I could have been a great Shakespearean actor if I'd kept on. I know that. In 1874, when Edwin Booth came to the theater in Chicago where I was leading man, I played Cassius to his Brutus one night, Brutus to his Cassius the next, and Othello to his Iago, and so on. And the first night I played Othello, he said to our manager, "That young man is playing Othello better than I ever did." That from Booth, the greatest actor of his day, or any other. And it was true. And I was only 27 years old. And as I look back on it now, that night was the high spot in my career. I'd had life where I wanted it. And after a time, I kept on, upward, with ambition. Hi, I married your mother. Ask her what I was like in those days. Her love was an added incentive to ambition. But a few years later, my good bad luck made me find the big moneymaker. Oh, wasn't that in my eyes at first? It was a great romantic part. I knew I could play better than anyone else. But it was a great box office success from the start. And then life had me where it wanted me. At about 35 to 40,000 net profit a season. A fortune in those days. Even in these. What the hell was it, I wonder, that I wanted to buy? It was worth. Well, no matter. A late day for regrets.
What has the studio meant to you?
It was a place where you could study with one of the great teachers in the world, and it was free. And it was a place where they were doing something that had not been done before. I mean, there was something going on that was new. It was not just being open or in the moment or being, it was hitting some part of you that was so raw, it was almost unbearable to watch at times.
Dustin won his second Academy Award for his portrayal of Raymond Babbitt in Rain Man. How did you prepare to play Raymond?
I go to hospitals, I go to UCLA, they show me, there's so much footage they can show me. You know, Oliver Sacks, who did those books, Awakening, that De Niro did, I meet Oliver Sacks. Well, I saw these two brothers, the twins, in Bronx Hospital, footage of them that Dr. Sacks showed me. And that's where we got the toothpicks for that scene, where I count the toothpicks, because he was smoking while he was talking to these two guys, and he used kitchen matches, and the kitchen matches fell down on the ground. And simultaneously, one brother said the amount that it was, like that. The other brother said it in thirds. Said 33, 33, 33. It was the same amount, right? And I said to the doctor, I said, what is that? I said, they're sort of like computers. No, 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 no. Faster than computers. Then you start to get into that magic world of whatever they're in. And it was very hard for me to find that guy. And suddenly, thank God, we're shooting everything on location. We're in that Buick convertible. Tom is driving the car, and I'm sitting next to him, and we drive, we have a scene to do, you know, Kmart or whatever, there's a few, you know. And then Barry Levinson, he says, you're going to come to the end of the scene, just keep going, just keep doing it. And we do about 3 of them. And we still got more room. And then we say, okay, we'll just we'll screw around. And I think Barry, who's really is about as close to an actor's, I mean, as a pure actor's director as you can get, I believe, says, just do what you want. He knows how to help you play. And we started improvising. Tom was doing fine, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to answer with, what not to answer with. And I realized I am in the soup with this guy, because the first time I'd ever come up with against a character, whatever, that I couldn't get a sentence out. that I couldn't process the way he's singing. And we go back, and there's Barry sitting in front of the playback outside. It's 100 degrees, you know, wherever we are, Kentucky, we were all summer. And he's laughing his head off. He says, come here, you got to see this. And I'm thinking I just bombed, you know. Again, I wanted to put in my resignation. He says, you got to see this, you got to see this. And I said, why? He says, you got to see this. He put the earphones down, he started playing back. He says, and he told him, go forward to the improvised one. And he's watching. And I saw what he saw. Because I didn't know what to say. So every time Cruz said something, I went, yeah. Yeah. He said, this may solve your problem. Because when you don't know when you're in, just say that. Right through the movie. And it put me there, is the only way I can explain it. Yeah. And I can't explain it. It's an in-between place. And you know what it is? It's like when your wife or your kid is saying to you, you didn't hear a word I said, did you? That's the place. And that was it. That was it. Thank God. Thank God.
To say that you found the character is an understatement. There are a number of remarkable scenes in Rain Man. One is the scene in which Tom's character, Charlie, and we get our first glimpse into what is going on inside Raymond.
And the way she looked was way beyond compare. So how could I dance with another? Ooh, I saw her standing there. Dun, 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 dun.
Can I like it when you sing to me?
Yeah.
Do we sing any other songs? You like the Beatles?
Yeah.
It's scary. Oh, it's scary bad. Scary bad. Oh, it's scary bad.
What's scary? What's scary bad?
I want burn baby. Water.
Water burn baby? What baby? Me?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Dustin, how much of that scene was improvised?
A lot of it. I mean, the form is there. I don't want to do the scene because, like any actor, when you know a scene like that is coming up, you dread it. You look on the schedule, oh, shit, I got to shoot that one tomorrow. And I came to it because it unnerved me, and I was afraid of it. I didn't know where it was going to come from. And we have to do it. We're on location. We're on a schedule. And I did a few takes, and they stunk. And Barry says, it's the whole thing. I mean, you got to just go.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't. I just, it's my limitation as an actor, man. I can't do it. He says, well, just, you know, we got to do it. And when I saw De Niro's thing, he said that to you. He said, sometimes you just have to do it.
Do it.
And I did not want to. And I tell you honestly, so you know about acting, there's no magic in it. I mean, sometimes you'll hit something, like I said before, you feel it's magical, but ultimately, there's no magic in it. I mean, if you want to know the truth is we're doing the scene, and now that moment comes where I have to do that thing, you know, and I just hate it, and I was so angry at my limitation. I was so angry at my inability to come close that's what came out. That's the subtext, not the scene. That's what's coming out. I can't fucking do this shit. And that's what will happen sometimes. You have to come close to what's, you know, your own sense of impotence, of artistic impotence. You know, you're breaking, you know, that's all that is. I've talked to a lot of people who are theater trained, and we're all the same, the ones I've talked to. We do a movie, and we can't get it out of our heads that the curtain is an opening and there's an audience there. It's just a take. It's just dead film. It may not even go to the rushes, and if it goes to the rushes, it may not even land in the film. It's your opportunity to fail. And yet we think that we got to get it. And that's terrible for film. And then we think we got to get every beat. Can I have another one? Can I have another one? I want to get, no, you don't have to have every director said this. I'm going to cut this. I'm not even going to be in the master that long. But we're theater trained. We want to get every beat.
When Dustin Hoffman was with us, he described very movingly his experience with Laurence Olivier at the very end of Olivier's career and life. You were privileged to work with him in the National Theatre when he was at the peak of his powers. Yeah. Didn't he give you some advice on taking risk?
Yes, he said, well, I was so in awe of working with him. He said, always a risk. Go out on the edge of the limb of the tree, go out even further until you fall. You know, there was a great rivalry between him and John Gielgud, because they both spoke first in a different way. Gielgud was the most beautiful verse speaker.
Right.
And Olivier tended to break it up, and John Gielgud said, I knew John Gielgud, and he said, do you like Larry? I said, yeah, he's terribly vulgar. He's a wonderful actor, but I think he's a bit vulgar. He speaks verse like a machine gun. And Olivier just sings it. So I think those are the differences. I mean, Gielgud was a phenomenal verse speaker. Down, down I come like glittering phaeton, wanting the manage of unruly jades in the base court, where kings grow bees. Or, you know, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. And then the Olivier, to be or not to be. That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer. But he was a more modern version, a more modern way of speaking.
You just had an acting lesson. 10 years ago, we talked about The Silence of the Lambs. Now, Tony won the Academy Award for his portrayal of Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and Premiere Magazine has included that performance on its list of the 100 greatest performances of all time, and its list of the 100 greatest movie characters of all time. And here is Tony's version on our stage of one of the most famous scenes in the history of motion pictures.
When we did the scene about the fava beans, I was thinking of Hal the computer, you know, that guy in 2001.
Right.
That I think the thing about Hannibal Lecter, he never blinked. So he says, you know what you look like to me with your good bag and your cheap shoes? You look like a rube, a well-scrubbed hustling rube with a little taste. And he goes on, all the way to the FBI. And I wanted her to be scared. I mean, you cut back to Jodie's face, she's going, so Jonathan said, so we got to that scene where I said, I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. And the little voice in my head said, go on, do it, Owen. I have this obsessive need to, well, I'm obsessive, to go over the text over and over and over. I do it 250 times. Not the entire script, but I just take what I have to do, because I want to be so sure that I know what I'm going to be doing.
Literally 250 times?
Oh, yeah. But it's a kind of magical, silly number I use. Not because I don't know it after 20 times, but something happens as I'm going through it. I become very familiar with the nature of the person I'm going to play. And all kinds of weird things start to happen, or like The Silence of the Lambs, tones of voice and images come to me. And so it's my Stanislavski approach to do it that way, because I believe that you can only act if you're relaxed.